Assalamu alaikum, fam. Hope you're doing well. So I want to talk to you today about this whole, good girl gone bad phenomena that has really been promoted to the youth in America and through the music industry worldwide. There's many common examples, right? Rihanna, Beyonce, Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Miley Cyrus, where they start off as these really good, kind of wholesome figures when they're younger, and then as they age, they turn really, really dark. And I've been thinking about how when I was young, growing up in the 90s, you kind of age with your favorite celebrity and you mimic their behavior, which leads you to kind of idolize in a way and go down a really dark path that ends pretty tragically. So, I was examining how we, as good Muslims, good women, religious women, people who still have a sense of virtue, righteousness, and modesty within us and are every day trying to rebuild it, how we can foster this type of more noble energy amongst the women. Now, I understand I've seen some comments on other channels where brothers say good women are not on social media. I agree with many of that, but I'd argue really sit down and ask yourself, is it wise to not have any righteous Muslim woman presence online for any of the young girls to look up to, while occultists overwhelmingly saturate the market through all social media, all billboards, literally everywhere you go? Is it wise to have your children be fractionally exposed to good women, and then when they go to school and their friends have their cell phones, when they hear music, when they go downtown and there's billboards and things on buses and they're insane teachers or whatnot, they might get just overwhelmed by the sheer volume of anti-religious, degenerate stuff. And I'd argue it's not wise to think that you're safe in your country because it's a majority Islamic. Because the world is changing, global organizations are getting a bigger foothold, and the university towers are the ones who put their graduates into the boardrooms of these tech companies that your children will use, and they are the ones who hire the coders who will follow the orders and implement the algorithms and such that influence your child's psychology. And there's only so much you as a parent can do, and sometimes having your child see another person do the same thing you told them to do will help in this regard for them to actually want to do it, to actually listen. I think many of us recognize this fact, and I understand how it's a very delicate balance, right? You want there to be good examples, and you want to make sure everyone's excelling to do better, and you want to beware of, chicks who are not trying to get better every day. I understand. Totally understand. But I'd urge you to really think how, for example, un-Islamic women get huge amounts of views by Muslim men in particular doing reaction videos, and they have no plans to convert. They put a bunch of ads on their videos and the Muslims flock to them thinking they're going to convert them, which can happen, no doubt, but you're creating a market for non-Muslim women to get the attention of men, instead of maybe encouraging the wives of some good Muslim men to, wear a burqa or something and do something to be an example. Is my point. Something to where, even if it's just their voice, like something, articles, something. Because if you let down the vanguard, I feel like it's an attentional weakness. Because I've been thinking about how it's really unique that the Muslim men want to keep their wives off the internet, but they're like as an active presence, but their wives are still on the internet. And I kind of thought, who is it that's saying, not everyone's fit to do dawah, not everyone should have a voice, good women shouldn't be present. And I thought, if I was an enemy, how would you go about destroying goodness? Well, you'd smother it in darkness. How do you extinguish a flame? You overwhelm it. And I thought, is it healthy? I'm thinking out loud here, right? Let me know your thoughts, because this is a very interesting, deep, ongoing conversation that should be had and is being had. Is it wise to kind of have handsome brothers be giving dawah to women who are still struggling with their hedonism? Would it not be better to have a woman who is very fortified, very present, to kind of talk to these women? I understand there's the principle that some have espoused of only men should give dawah because of physical assaults on women and all that stuff. And the purpose of the hijab is to hide. But I'd argue, how is that working out? On the global scale, when you're backed into a corner, isn't there a point where you're like doing something bad because you're not fighting against evil? Is it like overloading a donkey all on its back to where its knees fall down? You put too much on its back. I mean, the man in the household is required to work, provide. He has so much to do. And I feel like, isn't that the natural position of a woman, is to be the nurturer to the community? And if the youth are online, and the future is online, hence why they're pushing the metaverse. Please don't go into the metaverse. Why schools are pushing their kids online while everything is going in this sort of Black Mirror, dystopian, digital sphere. We can have a good example of like traditional women giving lectures. I started thinking about, for example, how beneficial would it have been if just growing up I saw a nun walking around who was actually talking to orphans, doing things like how they used to do in Italy, not too long ago. I just started thinking about how better that would be to reinvigorate this sort of righteous view of like sages, elders, wise people, going into the communities, walking around, not always in their cars, like really being present, but also having an online presence. Not saying that they have to have, 10 million subs. I'm just saying like something. Because if you pull back and you really look at it as a chessboard, you have to wonder, who is it that's like holding the shoulder and being like, no, don't. And then as they come closer and you're like, hey, you feel this anxiety, like, hey man, they're getting pretty close here. And they're gaining a lot of legal power. And they're really outnumbering us. Shouldn't we do something? And it's like, no, just sit down and do nothing. And it's like, okay, but shouldn't we say something? No, don't do anything. Just sit there and be quiet and shut up and, hide in the closet. Don't do anything. I feel like, is that the wisest decision? Is that right to say that no positive female role models should be present online to guide women who are struggling with horrible career paths to something better? Isn't it more of a temptation to have somebody who is like a very lustful, sensual woman to be overly clinging to men who maybe have a righteous wife, but maybe she's, not having the best of luck in the bedroom or with her body, where the piety is there, but there is something to be had of, somebody who is still in their jahiliyyah overly pressing themselves upon a brother through neediness and inundating them with messages, and it's very hard to connect with women who are a faceless profile with like 0 followers, 0 posts. It's not the same. You have to connect with someone. If you're a woman, I'd say women are very like, you have to have this trust. Like, if I don't know your face, I don't know your intentions, and you're a random account, I am not gonna spend time doing that. It could be a bot, it could be a scammer, it could be a hacker, it could be a man pretending to be a woman. There's shenanigans that are afoot. So I feel like we should have, some type of scene where it's like you can connect, because looking in the eyes of someone allows some type of bonding to occur, where you feel like you're able to actually interact with their consciousness, even if it's through a screen. But if it's a faceless, gray profile pic, you're like, who the hell is this person and what kind of coward are they? I don't see it as something pious. And I'm saying this as somebody who every day is trying to become more spiritual. So for the youth who are not yet Muslims, and older women who have been really degenerate in their life, they really need more aid. And it can't be through this, audio only, faceless methodology for women. And there's a thing that happens in women where when you're first coming into Islam, you're hyper vulnerable, and righteous men stimulate you too much, and it can be a big test and trial for the righteous men, right? Which, sure, yeah, they're going to have their iman tested, and they're going to have to be like Prophet Joseph, may Allah be pleased with him. But still, when you have like somebody on YouTube or BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, who's trying, right? Who's trying, that really helps. Like, just dropping knowledge, it's really hard to be interested if there's like a Zoom thing and you don't get to see the woman's face. It's really dry, less engaging, puts you to sleep. But if you see a moving entity on the screen, like a human being, you're like, oh, this is a real person. Like, I want to see their emotions. It's like how we measure each other through facial interactions, And when you don't have something to look at, you're just having the audio. Sometimes you can wash dishes, clean your bathroom, but it's very difficult to want to stay. So I feel like we're at a disadvantage. So if we want to help fight and combat against this good girl gone bad, we have to have real examples of very wise old women. I haven't found a woman like that yet, and God willing, I want to be like that, right? I want to be like when I'm 72 years old, sitting in my backyard, cooking steak with a bunch of grandchildren running around and talking about hadith or something like that, right? Hopefully be very fluent in Arabic by then. So I myself have this goal of wanting to be a sort of wise old lady who the young women can come to and young men can talk to. And maybe in the future, inshallah, I'll have like a cool Aisha style screen, or I'll wear a very pretty burqa and they can talk in person, or something like that. And I'll have a guard dog or something, I don't know, or my gun on my hips, I don't know, whatever it takes to be safe, because you never know if somebody dresses like a Muslim but they're not really, and then they try to do something crazy. But still, I have that goal in my heart, and I talk about it with my daughter, and I talk about it with others and with you on the channel. But there is a space. There's more pimptresses online than there is niqabis, hijabis, in the Dawah scene. And I feel like any wise person who takes a step back and breaks out of this like, mindset, you can see like, oh, it's like having a bunch of juicy sheep with no fence, and all these starving rabid wolves are at your gate, you're like, oh geez, there's a hole in the fence and it takes 2 coyotes to get through there. Wolf can jump over. We should repair that gap in the fence. And then someone's like, no, just make Dawah. Well, like, look, hey, well, you actually have to, like, put a physical fence. Like, you have to do something. Oh, no, just leave it up to Allah. He'll build the fence like this. It's like, well, no, we actually have to do the work, you know? Like, I don't see Allah as, like, a genie who, like, snaps his fingers and boop, there just appears something, right? I don't think that's the proper way to examine, you know, how we fix things in the world. I feel like we have to be facilitators of it by the permission of Allah. Expecting it to drop out of the sky is like expecting a piano to fall right in front of you in prime shape. No, you actually have to earn the money, go to the store, have it taken to your house, maintain it. Like, it takes work. So, the music industry, essentially, is what I'm getting at, has a huge budget to push these things out there. And you can be a good Muslim woman all you want, teach your kids all this stuff, but if you're that one kid surrounded by 15 kids who don't give a darn about any of that, and you have zero examples of good Muslim women online where you spend a lot of time, or in your physical location besides your mom, you're more pulled toward that. I can testify this to my own childhood, where there was some women, but they weren't like wise. They were nice, but they weren't like wise. So I feel like just how we have the noble sheikhs that I like personally on Scholarly Subtitles channel, they are wise, they're all men, which is wonderful, and we can look to them, but there is a piece of me that wishes I had that very same intelligence, but in the form of a woman. It feels lacking, like, where's the women at? Right? Women can't be imams, but women can just be wise women. Right? And then, you know, I had people, for example, who were making fun of me saying I'm trying to be like Aisha with all this wisdom and stuff. And I thought, whoa, these people are making fun of a woman wanting to learn and dispense knowledge and perfect herself and memorize hadith and such. Meanwhile, the occultists every day gain ground and degeneracy spreads, but instead they choose to mock those who are trying their best every day to go down a better path and help others and encourage others to do that. That seems to be a sort of programmed, you know, response. So if we want to be effective, we have to kind of have that. And I understand, you know, you go to the masjid and you have these centers, but that's not the only solution. You have to have multiple solutions. It's not just one size fits all. You know? Women need now more than ever mother advice. You know? If Muslim women don't become that, the Muslim girls will go to the feminists, the non-believers. They will go somewhere else to get that knowledge because the female Muslim community has done zero online, and it's all, faceless, and there's no bonding, whereas a kafir woman is going to be like right up in her face. Who's going to have the home field advantage? Somebody who is talking to you, engaging with you, and changing their energy through their eyes. You know, you feel their energy, you see their body language. What's going to have more of a mental impact? Or just a black screen with just audio where you can totally zone out and get distracted? Especially today, when the youth have high rates of ADHD and ADD, OCD, PTSD. There's a lot of short attention spans now. So you have to adapt to that environment and say, how can we lead the charge? I really wish that Mufti Menk's wife, one of them, even if, she just was in a burqa, it's still a human being there. If she just gave advice, I would watch, I would listen. What is her life like? What is she thinking about? There's a curiosity market there. People want to hear. And while you have the media showing oppressed women in niqabs, right? And then they show you the kafir women having a good old time, you see the neglect of the Dawah market in terms of that. It's really something to think about, okay? It really is. I know there's going to be a knee-jerk response to this. which doesn't help and it doesn't offer any solution. It's unpractical and almost dishonest and extremely rigid. But I argue that there could be a halal way to do it, where we would be very active in, pushing against the degeneracy and having a, solid force to help combat this huge wave of, potent, strategical, mental degradation that is occurring to many of the women, and how many kids we could save by the permission of Allah if we entered into such a noble mission, right? I just want to be the change I wish to see in the world, and so I'm going to try my best, because Islam has helped me. And if you see a gap, fill it, right? But I'm just sharing my thoughts with you so that maybe you too can get motivated and come up with your own ideas. Because we're all in this together, and we have to have solutions and discussions about, modern issues in a unique way. So this good girl gone bad situation can have many approaches, and I think we should discuss that.